Hey guys, welcome to Roy Marsh Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm here at my school, Gracie Schwartzwald, and I wanted to discuss a topic I've been thinking about for about the past year or so, kind of a realization I had. It's about getting older and training Jiu-Jitsu as you're older. And I think a fallacy I'm seeing for a lot of older Jiu-Jitsu people. What it is you'll see a lot of articles or people saying, well, now that I'm older and I can't kind of hang with the younger guys anymore, I need to change my jiu-jitsu. I need to focus more on being, defense and just having a good defense. My days of just smashing people are over. And I think this has a lot of unfortunately incorrect assumptions and incorrect showing a kind of an incorrect jiu-jitsu experience or teaching that they had. First, you shouldn't now be focused on defense now that you can no longer be offense. Defense should have been the core of your training in the first place. You should have developed a really solid defense as white belt, blue belt, purple belt. That should have been a big part of your training because the better your defense, the more safely you can attack. I'm seeing people sort of just taught a purely attack-oriented jiu-jitsu, and it works until you can no longer attack, and then you fall back, and now you're basically, maybe you're brown belt, and now you're having to learn defense as a white belt, in essence. But more than that, what it tells me is the style of jiu-jitsu they learned, in my mind, is an incorrect style. A lot of schools these days focus a lot of their jiu-jitsu on kind of being faster, more aggressive, stronger, more explosive, more athletic than their opponents. And it tends to come from sort of a tournament-minded jiu-jitsu where you have a very limited amount of time, so you have to be explosive. The problem with that is basically you're trying to physically outmatch your opponent. Which obviously as you get older, that can no longer be. And if that's the only style you learned, which was, harder, faster, stronger, more cardio, obviously there's going to come a time that doesn't apply, and now you're stuck. Like, what do? Well, then you just have to give up on winning and just say, well, now I'm just going to focus on defense, or I'm only going to be able to beat guys my age. This idea of, when I say that there's a split, in my view, between sort of the original self-defense minded jiu-jitsu versus the modern jiu-jitsu, people say, no, it's the same thing. It comes down to that idea of a lot of the modern game is based on overwhelming your opponent and dominating your opponent, whereas the original mindset was staying safe. Yes, you want to win, but the goal was not to, if your opponent is here, athletically, and I'm here, there's no way I can go up to him, okay? The idea was to bring him down to you or below you, whereas I think a lot of the modern game is based on, like, I need to just work out, be more athletic, and preferably compete against somebody my same level, so then it's kind of like who wants it more, or who's maybe more explosive or flexible or anything like that. The original assumption was always the person's always going to have all those physical advantages to me. So that's why the jiu-jitsu I learned and the jiu-jitsu I focused on is very pressure-based and very control-based. Since I've been living in Germany, I've probably tapped over 100 people to weight and to my pressure game. Not submissions, just they can't take it anymore. And even in the US before I left, there was a lot of people I would tap that way. And that's because they didn't come up learning that game, and so it's actually confusing to them. I'll have them stop afterwards and ask me, like, I don't understand what you're doing, why I can't breathe, why I can't move, because they've never experienced that, because they're taught, I've seen some of these schools, I've had my students go to these schools where, the whole time they're just drilling and the coach is going, faster, faster, move, move, move. And it's not about control, it's just about outpacing your opponent. And of course, if you're young, athletic, or more athletic than the opponent, that works to your advantage. If you're not, though, you can't outpace him. So when I use my pressure game and my control game, the focus of it is to take those things away. something I say all the time is I want to be able to beat my opponent even if he's stronger, faster, better cardio, more technical than me. And the only way I can do that is through positional dominance, positional control, and the application of weight and the application of pressure. All these things that will grind him down. So, I'm rolling with young guys, big, strong guys. There's no way I can just, go faster and harder than them. The only way I can submit them is by dragging them down. And since a lot of people don't learn that style, they're forced to always compete against their opponent at their opponent's level. And again, as you get older, you can't do that. So I'm older, but I still am very competitive with these younger guys, not because I'm trying to catch up to them, but because I'm always dragging them down to my level or below. So I always joke, I have to be a bad person. What's a bad person? A bad person is not somebody who brings themselves up to the other person's level. It's a person who drags the other person down to their level. So for me, I'm going to be a bad person. Now, in my experience, people don't know what pressure is anymore. I see a lot of videos. I saw a video the other day of a guy teaching a pressure pass, and literally he had no weight on the person. He didn't even have the person misaligned. He was just kind of bent them a little bit and said, "Oh, look, pressure." There was no pressure involved. I'm working on a very extensive DVD I've been asked for years on my pressure game, and eventually that will come out. But I want to make sure that I have everything really set well with it. But the study of pressure, I sat with some of my students last night and talked about, where I put my weight, why I'm putting my weight, how I misalign people. That's the only way that I'm going to be able to beat the younger guys or the more athletic guys, is by constantly taking those advantages away. First, I stay safe if I'm in a bad position, and then when I get to a good position, it's not about just attacking all out. I see a lot of guys, I've rolled with a lot of guys now, and you can tell that they just are taught a very attack-oriented style, because they'll attack, but then as soon as they end up in a bad position, they basically just give up. I've literally had them say to me, "Oh, well, you got me now, I give up." What? That's missing the entire point of Jiu-Jitsu, right? It's not just when you're winning. It's good. You have to know how to be in those bad places, how to defend, how to escape correctly. So if you're training as an older person, stop focusing on, faster. Work on the slow grind. Work on making the person carry your weight as much as possible. Work on control. If it takes me 10 minutes to submit a guy where maybe I could have just gone crazy and submitted him in a minute, I'll still take that 10 minutes. I was joking last night that for me it's not a real submission if the guy can get up right after I submit him and say, "Hey, let's go again." I want him to have to lay there for a minute, catching his breath. So as an older grappler, if you're kind of focused on the grappling side, maybe change the focus of your training to less, movement, learning to control somebody, start to play guards that are a bit more control-based rather than kind of, the sort of more open guards where, you're allowing the opponent a lot of movement where you have to kind of chase that movement or exceed his movement, things like a closed guard, things like this. Don't move for movement's sake. That's something, there's a saying in Jiu-Jitsu, Jiu-Jitsu is movement. I hate that saying, right? No. Good movement is good Jiu-Jitsu. Bad movement is bad Jiu-Jitsu. Something I preach to my students all the time is if you don't know where you're going and you don't know how to get there, don't move, because your movement is just going to be exploited against you. It's like wandering through a minefield where you can't see anything. Just walking around is just going to get you in trouble. You've got to know exactly where the dangers are and the route through them and where your end goal is. So slowing it down, playing a kind of control guard, it's going to allow you to maybe make there's going to be fewer options for him, so you get fewer decision trees. It's going to be easier to control the situation. When you're on top, really focus on mastering where you put your weight, how you control somebody, how you ride somebody. When your goal is not to necessarily control. I'm using that term broadly. Your goal is to stay connected, right? To stay connected in a dominant position. And really that's just on top. So I can deflect my opponent's escapes, I can ride my opponent's escapes, I can control my opponent's direct where he goes, and punish him for his movements. So, but part of that is the entire time I'm doing that, I'm also making him exhausted. Right? That's the point. Is no matter what his rank is, how great his strength is, any of this, all of that goes away at a certain point with exhaustion. I wrote about this a little while ago, that you'll finish a black belt, you'll submit a black belt with the same submissions you submit a white belt with. The only difference is, people say, well, black belts don't make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. You get caught making the same mistakes in jiu-jitsu as a black belt that you do as a white belt. The difference is you have to force the black belt to make those mistakes. And for me, the easiest way to do that is through pressure. Now, it could be physical pressure, it could be tactical pressure, it could be sort of mental pressure, right? I want to mentally break him, and part of that is physically break him. Sometimes he just sees no options. Will somebody bench press you from the mount? Yeah, white belt. Will a black belt? Well, people say no. I've had black belts bench press me from mount, just because I put so much weight or pressure. Wilson Hayes did it to Demetrius Johnson, right? He couldn't take the pressure. He's getting mounted. He was getting punched. He pushed him up. Demetrius took the arm lock. It's not a mystical move you're going to catch a black belt with. Now, you can catch him by surprise through quick movement, sure. But you're not going to catch necessarily a better guy that way, because he sees things faster than you do if he's a higher rank. But if I slow him down and I exhaust him, he knows it's a mistake. He's still going to make that mistake, because I've made it so bad where he's at that he has to take that mistake. And we both see it, right? And so it's going to be easier for me to catch that mistake, because it's going to be slower going into the mistake. So really start to spend your time, instead of just giving up entirely on beating the younger guys and saying, well, I just give up, I'm going to play defense, or focusing, trying to find even more tricks, because they're out there learning tricks too. And again, trick is going to be, a lot of the tricks are based on kind of surprise, which means one of two things. You'll catch them by surprise once, but not again, because it's no longer a surprise, or the surprise is based again on kind of speed. Whereas if you just grind the guy down, you don't need the surprise as much, or the surprise will work better because he's so overwhelmed, he's not going to see things coming in. So as an older guy, don't give up on beating the younger guys, but change your training from trying to match the younger guys or overwhelm the younger guys, because that's gone away. You're not going to have that anymore. Don't go up to them. Like I said, try to focus, learn how to bring them down, exhaust them so that their attributes now are lower than yours. So that's just a thought I had. It's fortunate for me, because it's kind of the way I came up, the way I learned Jiu-Jitsu was very heavy pressure control based Jiu-Jitsu. So if you haven't trained that style as much, train it. Hopefully if you have a coach, he won't yell at you, you need to move, you need to let the guy move, which is somewhat prevalent at a lot of academies now. It's if I'm on top, it's not my job to make something happen. It's the person's on bottom's job to make something happen. And if they're not going to make something happen, I'm going to make it miserable for them. So just give it a try. If you have any comments, you can always leave them for me. And as always, please like and subscribe to my channel, and also my new school's channel, Gracie Schwartzwald. I'm doing a lot of videos from my classes there. So if you like the way I'm teaching, you'll see actually me teaching normal classes, and you'll see I put a lot of detail into what I teach, a lot which may hopefully help you guys. All right, thanks again. Hey guys, something I wanted to add to the video. I was actually just putting everything away, and I just thought of this because I want you guys to have, if you want to learn or kind of focus for a while on the type of jiu-jitsu I was talking about, the pressure control based, this is extremely important. When you guys roll, turn the timers off. Okay, if you're only setting the timer for 4 or 5 minutes, it's basically just kind of you and I explode it for 4 or 5 minutes. You don't really develop the ability or the knowledge of the pressure game, the control game, right? Because the guy can just stall if he needs to ride the timeout, or you both are just going crazy because he knows he can rest in 4 minutes. He can rest for a minute or two and then get another roll in. Or if you set it for 15 minutes. That's really the best way to kind of learn one strategy in jiu-jitsu, right? So you start to be able to study the person's reaction. So if you get a control position, you'll start to learn all the ways he escapes, versus just kind of more just for 4 minutes, which is what I see a lot. And it really tells, because I'll have guys come to train with me and they're used to rolling for 4 or 5 minutes, and they'll be really good for 4 or 5 minutes, and then after 5 minutes they'll start looking around going, are we going to get a break? Can I go to the bathroom? Anything to get this to stop, because the drop off after that 5 minutes is steep. They'll just go from really doing great to now they're just getting smashed by white belts. So it's a really good way to learn that kind of long form pressure game, is to just turn the timers off and just roll. This also means if you get stuck in a bad position, you know what, you're gonna have to learn how to deal with being stuck in that bad position and making an intelligent escape. Because if you just keep exploding out of these bad positions, you're gonna be able to do that a couple times, but after a while you're not going to do it anymore. And so even when I have younger guys and maybe they explode out of a bad position once, maybe twice, but after that, 3rd or 4th time, they're not exploding anymore. They're exhausted. Whereas if it's only a 2 or 3 minute roll, 4 minute roll, maybe they can get away with it a couple times. But after a while, they're just, they're done. So go ahead and turn those timers off. Just roll. Or if you're setting the timer, minimum 10 minutes. All right, thanks guys.